What up, what up, what up? It's your boy, Cardinal Red, and we back for some more of that Ali Land boxing talk, people. And today we discussing Manny Pacquiao dominates all PBC fighters. Now, I'm talking about the welterweight division, not all in general, not heavyweights, you know, from the welterweight down, you know, not from the welterweight up, but from the welterweight down. Pacquiao dominates all these guys, and it's for a few reasons, and I wanted to just go in on what I feel like my reasons are for why Manny Pacquiao actually dominates most of these guys. You know, there are a lot of things that could be said about boxing and why the sport is fading fast, why it could, a lot of people could consider it as dying, or you know, the death of the sport has begun or whatever. And you know, you could attribute that to a lot of things. You know, a lot of people say that, you know, they're not any more great boxing coaches out there. And I would have to agree with that, with the exception of a few guys. I got a lot of respect for Freddie Roach. I have a lot of respect for Boo Boy. I have a lot of respect for Robert Garcia. You know, there are a few other names. You know, I don't want to ramble, so I don't. You know, but there are a few other names. But those two names right there, I would say, to me, are two of the best boxing coaches out there right now. Would be Freddie Roach and Robert Garcia. And there are a few other guys, but like, I don't want to ramble. And when you think about, you know, just the whole situation surrounding fighters not having great teachers, you know, you can't, even if you have a great teacher, it's hard for a great teacher to teach everybody. And when you only have a few great teachers out there, you kind of spread them thin, because they're trying to teach everybody. They're trying to teach this fighter and this fighter. It's been situations where Freddie Roach has been the boxing coach of both guys in the ring, which is crazy because, you know, there's so much conflict of interest when you do that. Which is why I say what I said about top-ranked boxing. There was a lot of conflict of interest going on in top-ranked boxing. You know, when you're the coach of both guys, it gives whoever has the advantage in the fight, or whoever's the A side, normally that's who the coach is going to go with, and they're going to use every tactic in the book to exploit what he knows about the B side fighter. So, you know, boxing has become a situation of he who knows more is going to win the fight. You know, he who has the higher skill set is going to win the fight. And that only goes back to, you know, these guys don't have great older guys teaching them how to win fights, you know, and how to win wars, how to battle, you know. Everybody's going with this Floyd Mayweather formula to boxing, but what they don't understand about the Floyd Mayweather formula of boxing, it doesn't teach you how to win a fight. It teach you how to make money, but it's not teaching you how to win an actual fight. Now, you can go into a lot of these fights and play defensive and, you know, play to the crowd and all this stuff. And as long as your opponent is not as good as you, you're probably going to win. But what happens when you're fighting a guy who's actually naturally better than you? And it showed in the Pac-Broner fight. I mean, it really showed that AB has no skill sets. His whole claim to fame is his Philly roll. The Philly shell / shoulder roll that Floyd showed him. And that's not boxing skill. You know, everybody says the sweet science. That's the sweet. But that's not boxing skill. That's just one ability. That's an ability. It's not all around boxing skill. He was unable to show any boxing skill because Pacquiao had way more boxing skill than he has. He has way more knowledge of the game. He has way more talent as far as actual boxing ability. Like if Adrian Broner has 3 abilities in boxing, Pacquiao has 15 abilities in boxing. You know, they just don't match up very well. And I just feel like you can say that about every PBC fighter. And it's not their own fault. It's not that these guys aren't talented. It's more that they don't have the great opponents to go up against. And not only do they not have the great opponents to go up against to prepare them for even bigger fights, they don't have the right guys even preparing them for these mid-level fights that they have, so that they dominate the fight and make it more exciting for fans. You got guys, you know, that fighting, you know, you got an A-level fighter fighting a B-level fighter from PBC. You got an A-level PBC fighter versus a B-level PBC fighter. And the B-level PBC fighter is looking better than the A-level. I mean, in what world would anybody have seen Josesito Lopez almost knocking Keith Thurman the F out, you know, and in that fashion to where he made Thurman look like a C-level fighter. And then Thurman got the nerve, after all that, to come back and say, I deserve a Pacquiao fight. I mean, it's laughable. It is really laughable. It's almost like they wrote that script before the fight. Like, okay, you're going to win, and when you win the fight, make sure you go out and say this. I mean, if you're going to make boxing like the WWF, you got to be able to work. The thing about the WWF, they don't care what happens. They're going to work on the fly. And I don't even watch wrestling no more, but back when it was the WWF, I don't watch the WWE. When it was World Wrestling Federation, when they had actual good writers and scripts. Now, when they had a on-the-fly situation, they didn't care if somebody got their foot cut off. Them writers was back there putting together new scripts that go with the storyline. I mean, it's so laughable at PBC. It's to the point where these guys are getting beat up by, like I said, an A-level PBC fighter versus a B-level PBC fighter, and the B-level fighter beats you up, and you still got the nerve to go out here and try to call somebody out, and it just don't make no sense to me as a boxing fan. And the way I look at boxing and study boxing, it don't make a lot of sense right there. And I just feel like Pacquiao, with the exception of one name, will just dominate all of these guys. And the only thing that they can do in defense of their poor performances is to keep calling him old and saying he's past his prime and saying they want to beat the legend. You know, this is why I keep saying what I'm saying about Pacquiao needs to rethink maybe what he's doing. I was all for him joining the PBC just for him to dominate these young guys at first. But I'm seeing now that these young guys, they're not giving the level of competition I thought that they would give. And I don't see any of them, with the exception of one guy, giving Pacquiao any type of problems. And it's going to water Pacquiao's performances down. It's making you got his own fans saying, oh, well, he didn't look good in his last fight. But they're not mentioning the fact that he had the flu during the last fight. That he got his eye scratched by Adrian Broner's glove, from the tape from Broner's glove. And that was one of the reasons that hindered his performance, along with the flu. You know, they're not mentioning these facts. And they're not mentioning the fact that even with all of that, a 40-year-old flu-ridden, scratched-eyed Pacquiao still made Adrian Broner look like he was fighting a 5-year-old. Like, in what world are these fights worth watching? You know, in what world is this entertaining boxing? And I love Pacquiao. I'm not down in Pacquiao. I'm saying that these guys are not his level of competition. Thurman is not his level of competition. Porter is not his level of competition. Danny Garcia is below them guys. Mikey Garcia is slightly above them guys. Errol Spence is the only name there. The only name at PBC worthy of fighting Pacquiao, giving him a good fight. And to me, the problem with that fight, there's a couple of problems with that fight. If Pacquiao loses to Spence, he gains nothing. If Pacquiao beats Spence, he gains nothing. You know, this is a $10 million fight no matter what. You know, it seems like all his fights are going to be like $10 million fights no matter what. When he should still be getting 20 to 25 million per fight. He's still worth that. And there are only a couple of guys out there that he can match up with that'll bring him that type of money. And also, if he, even if he goes out and he fights Spence, a lot of people tune in. That's just not money, and not enough money involved with the risk of fighting Spence. Let me say this too. For everybody that keeps saying Canelo's too big, Canelo's too big. I'm not saying Manny Pacquiao, now listen, should fight Canelo at 160 pounds plus. That can't happen at all. This fight really can't happen at all anyway, but understand that this is the biggest money-making fight in boxing, probably left. And there will be ever probably again. If those two guys match up, that will be the biggest money-making fight. Not Pacquiao Mayweather, but Pacquiao Canelo will be, if these guys match up, the biggest money-making fight in the history of boxing. It's going to surpass the Maypac fight. Now back to the point about Canelo is 160, probably 66 pounds, walking around. Errol Spence is 155 pounds. He's naturally a middleweight. You know what I'm saying? He loses weight to fight at 140 pounds. He doesn't. Now understand me. Pacquiao's fighting a 160-pound fighter, whether he fights Spence or Canelo. The difference is about 5 pounds. And they're the same height. And Spence has the reach advantage over Canelo. So if Spence was to fight Canelo, he's actually bigger than Canelo.